Hey everybody, and welcome back to Lindsey's Little Library. So today is BookList Thursday, and BookList Thursday is something I do with Sarah over at Sarah's Nightstand. We come to you every Thursday with some sort of book thoughts, ideas, book recommendations, something bookish related. So today is a fun theme, just back to like our original roots of just pure book recommendations. So today we're going to talk about historical fiction books that are set in the United States. So, as you can imagine, I have quite a pile of books to talk about. I have tried to whittle it down. I really have, but it seemed like when I whittled it down, it seemed like the ones that were really well known were some of my really good recommendations. And so I'm going to talk about those briefly, and then I'm going to talk about some books you may not have heard of or may not be as popular. And then we're going to talk about a few books that I'm really excited to read that I haven't read yet. So definitely getting more than just your 5 recommendations this week. So get a pen, get a piece of paper, maybe grab some tea, coffee, something, but here we go. So let's start with some of the more popular ones that are out there. The Help, probably one of the most well-known books, in my opinion, in this stack, but The Help by Catherine Stockett takes you back to 1962, Jackson, Mississippi, the middle of civil rights movement, and you are learning about that dynamic of African-American nannies working for white families, the bonds they have with those children, how they are treated, what all happens. It really does depict a fantastic story and a fantastic look at what that time period was. Highly recommend this if you haven't read it yet. Don't feel bad, just go pick it up if you haven't, but definitely The Help. So the next more popular book I want to talk about is Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. This follows a woman named Georgia Tann. This is like the late 1930s in Tennessee, and she is the founder of the Tennessee Children's Home Society Orphanage. And what Georgia Tann did was she saw an opportunity to basically exploit children to make herself some money. She saw a gap between wealthier families who were not able to have kids and either orphans that were out there or your poor families that maybe couldn't support their children anymore. And she decided that, hey, this is an opportunity for me to make some money. And so she would take those kids into her orphanage and basically sell them to the highest bidder. She's a horrible woman. Like one of the, just the villain that she is truly comes out in this story. This is dual timeline, so part of it is in that late 1930s and then part of it is present day. But it is a beautiful story, and you will be like continually reminding yourself that this is definitely based on real events. It's not true, but it's based on real events, which is just, that led me down a whole rabbit hole. It was crazy, but very good story. Another fairly popular book that's out there is Orphan Train by Christina Baker Klein. This follows the event, let's see, we're talking about, when did Molly actually go? Vivian. So Vivian was on the Orphan Train. It doesn't say, but the Orphan Trains ran between 1854 and 1929. So basically there was an overabundance of orphans on the East Coast, specifically kind of around New York City. So what would happen is they would be loaded onto trains and they would start driving west and stopping at little towns, and people would be adopted along the way. So this follows the story of one girl, again, dual timelines, but you learn a lot about what she experienced being on the Orphan Train and then what she experienced when she was adopted. So another fantastic and beautiful book. Another book, again, I feel like is fairly popular but needs to be on the list is The Kitchen House by Kathleen Grissom. This takes us back to your traditional plantation. I think it's in Virginia. We followed our character Lavinia. She was a young girl who was coming over from Ireland to live here with her parents. Her parents ended up passing away on the ship. To kind of pay for her voyage, she ended up going and living with the captain of the ship as an indentured servant. And so she was sent to live basically with the slaves that were part of this plantation. So she is a girl from Ireland, but she's mixed in with the slaves. She's an indentured servant. She's treated like them. There's a lot of really good eye-opening events that happen in this book. It's fantastic, and I cannot wait to get to the second book, which is Glory Over Everything. It's somewhere back there, but I definitely need to get to that book as well. The next book, fairly popular, is Kristen Hanna's The Great Alone. This isn't necessarily based on a specific historical event, but it does take place in the 1970s, where post-Vietnam War, where we have our main character, Lenny, and her father, Ernst, is a former POW from the Vietnam War, and he's dealing with some major post-traumatic stress disorder. Of course, back in that time, that really wasn't a thing. And so to deal with this and to deal with these issues that he's going through, he decides to pick up his entire family and move to Alaska. When they get there, it's summer, and Alaska is fantastic and it's gorgeous and is like this wonderful paradise that they thought it was going to be. And then winter comes, and we're still suffering from PTSD, and it's night and it's cold, and it goes from there. So it's a fantastic historical fiction. Again, 1970s, a little bit newer, takes place in Alaska. I highly recommend this book as well. All right, next one I want to talk about, I feel like is like, we're getting some places with this book just because it is about a pandemic and we're living in a pandemic, but it's As Bright as Heaven by Susan Meisner. This brings us to late, I don't even know if there's a year on here. Anyways, so the United States is in the throes of the Great War, and this family is presented with an opportunity to move to Philadelphia and kind of better themselves. So we follow Pauline and her husband, and then their three daughters, Evelyn, Maggie, and Willa, as they move to Philadelphia. And her dad starts working, I believe, with his uncle, who is a mortician. He has a funeral home. They attend the parade that kind of started the entire Spanish flu pandemic. They attend that parade, and then they live through Philadelphia when it is really in the clutches of the Spanish flu. And you get the side of this like mortuary funeral home side of things and what was really happening with that. There are parts of this book that I can still vividly picture the scenes in my head. It's just written so beautifully. Susan Meisner is definitely one of my favorite historical fiction authors. But if you can handle reading about a pandemic during a pandemic, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to pick up As Bright as Heaven. All right, let's talk about some frontier life, because, you know, can't talk about American historical fiction without visiting the Oregon Trail, right? So Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon. I actually just read this book last month, and it's amazing. It is amazing. This is quite the adventure you're going to go on. We are in 1853. We have the May family, which is a fairly big family, and they're joining up with a number of other families as they head out on the Oregon Trail. There is a man named John, they say his name, John Lowry. They say that name like all the time in this book. John Lowry is also going with to kind of help as a guide. He's been on this trail a few times. His dad breeds different mules, and so he takes him to different forts, and so he's fairly familiar with it. But he meets his match in Naomi May. I love the banter between the two of them. I love what happens between the two of them. They are just a fantastic couple, and so you kind of see their relationship build. The thing that gets me with this book and that hooked me in is the first 6 pages. As you are introduced to a prologue, you are given a glimpse at what is going to happen in the future, to the point where I almost didn't want to turn the next page. But you're given this little taste of what's going to happen, and then you see the buildup and the details of what got them to that point, and it is fantastic. Total frontier, or total Oregon Trail, new adventure, set out on a journey type vibes and feels. It makes me want to go play Oregon Trail again like I did in school, even though I died of diphtheria all the time. But it's a fantastic book. Definitely highly recommend picking this one up. And the next book I want to talk about, I feel like just does not have the attention it should have. So this is 1000 White Women. It's the Journal of My Dad by Jim Fergus. This follows a true historic event. So there was a point in time, it was kept fairly secret, but there was a deal made between the Cheyenne Nation and the government that they would not sell, but a number of women that were kind of committed to insane asylums would go and marry Cheyenne warriors to kind of bring civilization to that tribe. So May Dodd is one of those women. She kind of sees this as her only out. Her family had her committed to an insane asylum because she fell in love with a man below her station. She is not insane. She is a perfectly reasonable woman, and she sees this opportunity as her only way out of this insane asylum. So she goes and marries an actual Cheyenne chief. So it is written in diary format, so if you love that, this is fantastic. But it journals her journey of going to marry him. So it's so good. I read this a while ago. I actually should be rereading it again. It's been quite a while, but I remember loving it. I still remember loving it and remember certain scenes of it. What's awesome is there's actually a sequel called The Vengeance of Mothers. This is a journal of Margaret Kelly and Molly McGill, and it follows up the story of 1,000 White Women. So maybe that needs to be a vlog. Maybe I need to do a little vlog. Reread this one and read this one. I think that's a good plan. But there's those two. Definitely pick those up. Okay, so now I have 3 more books. Don't worry, we've been going quite a ways so far, but I can't help but talk about these. These are 3 books I really want to pick up soon. So the first one is Hotel in the Corner of Bitter and Sweet by Jamie Ford. This talks about the Japanese internment camps that were here in the United States during World War II. And I think it follows one family who ends up going to that camp. I want to say it's dual timelines. I feel like it's dual timelines because it's like they owned a hotel before they had to go to this camp. Oh yeah, 1942 and 1986. So it's dual timelines, still both historical. But I'm very excited to read this one. I've heard really great things. And look at how tiny it is, but it sounds like it packs quite the punch. So there's that one I want to get to. The next one I really want to get to is Sold on a Monday. This is actually inspired by a picture that was taken during the Great Depression that says 4 children for sale. This follows Ellis Reed as he takes this picture and then kind of leads to like the break in his career. Another person that worked at the paper, this Lillian Palmer, is haunted in the role that she played with this, and they both just can't help but think about this family and what happened to them. And I think I don't know if they go help them or what goes from there, but I'm very intrigued on this book as well. And the other one I want to pick up is News of the World by Paulette Giles because there's a movie coming out and I really want to see it. This follows our Captain Jefferson Kyle Kidd as he drives through northern Texas performing live readings of newspapers. At one stop, he is offered $50 gold piece to deliver an orphan to her relatives near San Antonio, and he takes on that. And so him and this little girl have to go on this little journey. I believe there's something in his past that comes up. Oh yeah, the little girl was raised with Indians and they just rescued her. Now they're getting back to family. So I know that there's Indians. I knew there was Indians involved as well, but it's going to be a movie. So I think I should read it. Anyways, that's a huge stack of American-based historical fiction books that you need to pick up if that's not enough for you, and you just need to head over to Sarah's channel and see what books she has to suggest for us today. I'm excited because I'm always looking for more books to add to my historical fiction collection. You guys know me. That's just my jam. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.